we, of course, at the Orchestre Métropolitain and myself, we wish for a more inclusive, a more open-minded arts world. And that's why we initiate those conversations. But now I'm thrilled to have joining me for this conversation two wonderful, wonderful artists, Valerie Coleman and Carlos Simon. So hi, Carlos. Hi, Valerie.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. You're artists that I've been having the pleasure of collaborating with in the United States with the Philadelphia Orchestra quite recently. And we will be playing in a few weeks one piece of each of you, Umoja, which speaks about unity from Valerie Coleman, and Carlos Simon. We're actually doing it very soon. Fate Now Conquers, which is linking very successfully the fate through Beethoven's eyes, but how it is for everyone to relate to in the 21st century. So thank you again both for accepting this invitation. And I would love to start about the themes that I just said, about your works, so unity and also hope and equity. That is, I think, the most important value that we need to talk about at the moment. I would love to hear how you yourself are linking your cultural background and your life at the moment with these values. So maybe first, Valerie, I know we've been also recently collaborating also on a composition competition through Orchestre Métropolitain, and we talked about those values too, but let's talk first about how you see yourself at the moment.
Thank you so much for having me. This is amazing. Umoja stands for unity in Swahili. And it is one of the principles of Kwanzaa. It's the very first principle of Kwanzaa. You have Umoja, Kujichagulia, Ujima, Ujamaa, Nia, Kuumba, in Imani. And the very last one, Imani, is something that is near and dear to me as well. But Umoja has been with me for my entire career. It started off as a women's song for women's voices, and we used it for singing, going around the community throughout New York and singing for the NAACP as we would visit public schools. So we wanted to send that message of unity, and then it transferred itself into a woodwind quintet, which my former ensemble, Imani Winds, performed quite a bit as that last encore piece. So in bringing it now and expanding it into the world of orchestra, I'm so delighted that unity, that message of unity, is still very much present within the song. It's a simple song, but that's what unity needs. It needs something that a person can really internalize through its simplicity, something that actually reaches that common thread that ties us together, which is the human experience. And as a composer, this is something that is really critical, that I really try to embrace in every composition that I write. I always think about, how do we humanize a moment in time? How do we humanize a culture, a person, any kind of thing that brings us all together and ties up common threads of cultural variation? So that's what Umoja is to me, and that's where I am right now in my life.
That's great. And how about you, Carlos?
Well, as I'm listening to Valerie and thinking about how powerful music really is and has that power to bring people together and can connect. I'm always reminded of my background. My father was a preacher, my grandfather was a preacher, and great-grandfather was a preacher, and they had that ability to bring communities together, and if we look at the African-American community, preachers had that, that they were pillars pretty much. And I'm not a preacher, but I kind of see myself as in a way using music to bring people together and hopefully starts conversations. With Fate Now Conquers, I look toward Beethoven and his music and his philosophy, and looking through his journals and seeing what he was thinking, and I was inspired by this entry that he inputted in about 1815, where he's talking about fate and how he's sort of relinquishing his power to fate, and at his life and what his musical input and output rather, and how it really will affect us as in the future, 50, 60 years, how will my music impact our community? And I don't think I have, a say, we're all kind of in this quandary, if you will, and fate. And I think drawing that inspiration from my heritage, looking back and seeing how far we have come. I don't think my great grandfather or grandfather would ever picture me using Beethoven. I don't think Beethoven would actually picture me as African American using his themes or being inspired by that. And so I think fate has a way of pushing us to a better place, and that's me being optimistic. Honestly, we go through things, but hopefully things become better.
That's inspiring to hear you talk, both of you. And there's a lot of words that come back. You're talking about a community, then you're talking about connection and connectivity. So what I hear about this is building bridges. And that's something that I think is very, very important. There's never enough bridges, I think, that we can build together, and that's between cultures, that's between people, that's between origins, that's between anything really, but also with different kind of music genres. I know that, for example, Carlos, I was fascinated to know that as a keyboard player, you've been touring with Angie Stone, and I think that's wonderful, to see all this kind of varied background. So as a composer, is building bridges really the main goal, or is it more an expression of yourself hoping that it's going to connect? I would like to hear you talk about it, both of you.
Well, I'd like to think that the bridges are already there, and it's a matter of guiding the eyesight, the line of sight to those bridges. I think in realizing that they're already there allows us to have a sense of familiarity. Yeah, within my compositions, that's something that I always try to think about, is how to connect the dots in such a way that it shines light on the human condition. For Umoja, I think about this feeling of 3/4 and how that's pervasive throughout music history, no matter what culture you're in, whether it's Afro-Cuban or whether it's in a Viennese waltz.
Yeah, that's true.
Movement and swaying and dance is something that we all share. Shining a light on what is already there, that human condition. We all laugh, we all cry, we love our children. We have cultures that are so unique and so varied, but yet there's always that common thread of creating memory and creating a sense of pride amongst each other, and creating a sense of community as well. So tying that all in and shining the light on that bridge is where it's at, for sure.
I think one of the things that I really enjoy about being a composer and artist is that I may come into writing a piece or with certain expectations. Someone will hear it in the performance, and it'll be something completely different from what I even imagined. That, in a way, that's building a bridge that I didn't expect to build. These type of things happen all the time, and I love it. I do like to start my pieces and with the idea of starting conversations, bringing up things that happen in our society or issues that are on a deeper level. For me, again, that's that it can connect with someone else, and someone else will get a different meaning out of it. And it's life-changing to me to kind of hear something different that I didn't expect.
That's fascinating, those two takes on the bridge and how what it means. And I hope you're aware that you are also great inspirations for a younger generation of artists at the moment. And it's going to just grow even more, as your music is going to be played even more. And we all agree it's important to have role models in life in general, but also for the values, but also that the young people can recognize themselves and then know what they can aspire to or what they want to aspire to. And I'm wondering if you can talk about who were your role models? Did you see role models? How do you see yourselves now as role models, as composers or as musicians in general?
Well, Carlos, I hope you don't mind my saying that I feel the common thread between us is that our parents serve as pillars of the community. I think that witnessing that has a big impact. My mom, she ran a daycare in West Louisville, and she has been in business for 60 years, just closed down because of the pandemic, but she witnessed generations. She raised generations of babies. There was one thing that she wanted to do, that she did for me, is instill a sense of belief in those generations. And so watching her in her day-to-day smile, greeting people at the door, just the biggest smile on her face, I think that gave me so much inspiration and wanted to go into something that allowed to bring people together. My other big inspiration is somebody who also hailed from West Louisville, which is Muhammad Ali. And I didn't realize that he was an inspiration until later on in my career as I was growing up, because he came from that culture. It was a culture where you talked mess to survive. You had to puff up your chest a little bit in the West End. And so that's where Muhammad Ali came from, and that indomitable sense of belief, of survival, just determination, grit. I think watching him over the years, my family knew his family because his father was a pillar in the community as well. He would go around painting houses and painting murals and things. He was an artist. Having them as a part of the community played a big role in how we all grew up with that sense of grit and determination in whatever we did.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing for me. I spoke earlier about my patriarchy, if you will, but and they were community leaders, at its core, and trying to help, the community be better, through religion and spirituality. But I can't talk about my matriarchy, my grandmother, my mother, they were so instrumental in helping me understand who I was as a Black man in this country, but also kind of helped me to find my way as a musician, and it really encouraged me to go further. I'm the first musician that in my family that decided to go, be professional. Although music is a huge part of my lineage, everybody's a musician just about. But I was the first one to kind of journey as a professional, and it's really in large part to my grandmother and my mother, really seeing me through that. So it really speaks to the overall, women and in our community. And I'm so grateful for that encouragement and inspiration.
But now you are role models for a younger generation. What would you tell this younger generation, aspiring musicians, composers specifically, but what would you tell this generation?
Oh man, well, I tell you what, I don't think either one of us plan to be role models, and we're grateful to have an impact in people's lives. That is truly a blessing that we pay forward. I would say that the message I would give to generations moving forward is not only have grit and not only have determination, but open yourself up to the world of possibilities. Listen to everything that is around you, because it could very well not only shape your perception, but also change your perception as well. Act in wisdom, always act in love. In how you speak and care for one another. But the biggest thing I would say is don't ever seek permission outside of yourself. Always look inside of yourself for permission. After all, as composers, that's what we have to do every day. When we look at that manuscript, just this blank sheet, where to start? What are the ideas that happen? We don't wait for somebody to give us permission in what direction to go. The creative process is that of decision making. And in order to make decisions, you have to invest yourself with authority. So I would say just really give yourselves permission to be creative, to be artist, to let your voice be heard. Just go for it, and be okay with failing, because that's how we learn. that's how we grow, and we learn parameters, and then once we learn those parameters, we learn how to break past those parameters. So It's all about the science behind creating things, this finding and failing, and giving yourself permission, for sure.
Yes, giving yourself permission to appreciate your own voice. That as an artist, it's important to really understand and to really appreciate who you are as a person and how it affects your music or your art. Doesn't have to be music, but for a long time, I shied away from using my gospel roots and my roots in R&B, and that it's especially when it came to writing, classical music, because they're two different worlds. I couldn't blend them. And now I'm appreciating both. I love Beethoven, and I also love Angie Stone. I love Mozart, but I also love some James Cleveland, so blending the two together, it's been instrumental for me, and it's been a huge part of my artistic voice. So I would say to anyone who's seeking advice, just to learn to appreciate your influences.
I would like to hear, and I think everyone would like to hear, what would be your wish for a more inclusive cultural arts scene, music scene, whether in the country or everywhere in the world, also here in Canada? It's a reality, and how would you like to see this scene become more open or embracing more the differences and the cultural background of everyone in that scene?
Maestro Yannick, I feel that you are doing it already. The way you program is so thoughtful. It's never like tokenism. It's never intentional to, no, it's organic. And how you pair together composers and how you curate an experience that the audience can easily be brought into is brilliant. And so that's my first answer to that. How the way you do it, I think, is a model for how other conductors should consider. And I see you doing it with both orchestras, and you're doing it also with the Met. It's quite brilliant. Within those lines, getting people attuned to or bringing them into the experience of various cultures, but also working from an educational standpoint as well, getting instruments and training, for those who are not able to get those instruments or have belief that they could play those instruments because they're busy thinking about just simply surviving. And so I think about getting those instruments into their hands, getting them the foundation, and also instilling the belief through example that they can achieve or break the mold and build their own path. And that actually goes all the way up into college. There has to be pipelines for, these students to bloom and flourish and be brought in.
Yeah, well, I can't really add to that because that's incredible. Well said. But I will say, it's important to be inclusive of all voices and stories, and being able to kind of include voices that have not been traditionally represented in these very elitist white spaces, if you will. And it's important to kind of include these underrepresented voices. I am so grateful for you and my mentor, Gabriella Lena Frank, who just, being a mentor for me, and it's a stepping stone, and I'm so grateful. I'm just one of many, so many talented composers and artists who deserve a chance just like me. And so I will always say I'm just a representation, and there are others. So that's where I'm going to say.
You both might be too humble to say it, but I mean, you are both real shining lights and people who are inspiring me and all the musicians, and I'm sure countless other musicians and composers who really are touched by your music and see that it's possible to be yourself and change the face of what you just said, Carlos, being a traditionally, very white and elitist space. And we're very grateful for you, and we can't wait to perform your music again. And I can't wait to see you as soon as possible. And I wish both of you to stay safe wherever you are, DC and Miami, snowed in, not snowed in, but stay safe and healthy. And God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you.